Hello and welcome to the Q2 2025 Alliance for Pulmonary Hypertension webinar. My name is Rob Platika and I'm a project manager with Admedicum. We at Admedicum have been supporting the Alliance as the Secretariat for the last 3 years. In today's webinar, we have 5 speakers to give you the latest updates on PAH. After each talk, there'll be some time for questions and answers. First up, we have Ieva Plume, President of PHA Latvia. Ieva?
Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to start our webinar with my insights about World Pulmonary Hypertension Day in Latvia this year. And as you know, the World Pulmonary Hypertension Day celebration takes place every year on May 5th. This is for context for this webinar, and it's some pictures from celebrations of the day in other countries. For a broader context, you see where is my country and some useful numbers. We have approximately 300 PAH patients in the country, and the members of Pulmonary Hypertension Association in Latvia, we have 50. PAH center we have in Pauls Stradiņš Clinical University Hospital in our capital Riga. What is the Oxygen Festival? What does it mean? Several years ago, I came up with idea to celebrate PH Day with Oxygen Festival because oxygen is very comprehensive concept and well describes the needs of PAH patients. It is also universal term that is understandable to everyone because everyone needs oxygen. This year and other years, the realization of the event always is together with hospital, and it gives us many opportunities. For example, technical support. It's a very nice, large, and free of charge space. Some even props and furniture for event. Of course, public communication and more visibility and additional PR activities. And of course, the hospital doctors and specialists can lead our educational part of festival. Important thing before event is communication, and for our main audience, people with disabilities and seniors, the best media channel is national radio stations. And this year we had 3 members of PH Latvia who's promoted the event on the social media with reels and stories. You can see one of the ambassador of this year festival was my dog, and with video, and of course our member Zane Lazdiņa with very nice video, and our other member of association Ieva Plume with very nice publications. All communication part we did only with one press release and with Paul Stradiņš Clinical University Hospital informational channels. This year we have 3 parts of event. The main one was a health part. It needs to notice that the event is free of charge for everyone, and interest for free examinations and measurements is very large, and of course individual consultations of physiotherapists, social mentor, and consultations about home oxygen therapy also was a very good appreciate from participants of festival. The other part is educational part, and this year it was excellent with practical session about different kinds disabilities. People experience, for example, what it was like to be a blind, what it was like to be deaf, and this session was very tactile and informative. And of course, we provided informational materials about our organizations and some booklet, very nice, about ABC of clinical research, and materials of Disease Prevention Center about healthy lifestyle. Networking and inclusion also is a very big part of the event. This year we had 2 sign language interpreters to help people with hear impairments and assist them, and this sign language interpreters worked on all 3 parts of festival. And also we had a new World Cafe format, talking rounds with questions about life goals, about dreams, about mental health. At the beginning, only networking moderators from PH Latvia wanted to talk, but after some time, participants were unstoppable and openly shared their experiences, and it was very, very, very nice and engaging. Now, I would like to share some short video from Oxygen Festival to feel you some spirit of this event. And of course, this great work would not be possible without a good team. Before event, we worked 3 staff members, but in the day of event, we have 14 staff members, volunteers, and employers. And it was very great also for a team, not just to implement a third oxygen festival, but also to learn something new and make a great public event. Of course, we have different supporters for this year festival, and it is great because there are different stakeholders. There are umbrella organization, PH Europe Association. We are very grateful for their support every year in implementation of World Pulmonary Hypertension Day celebration in Latvia. Of course, we have on our side health institution. It's a Paul Stradiņš Clinical University Hospital. We have industry partners, international partners, and national partners. And this year we are very lucky because we have a big project that support from EU grant and state fund, and it's on the project basis. And of course, we have other enterprises who support us, and it's these supporters and collaborations are for last 2 years supporters in the Oxygen Festival project. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation, Ieva. It's much appreciated. Our next speaker is Dr. Professor Andris Skride, who is the head of the Pulmonary Hypertension Division at the Stradiņš Clinical University Hospital in Riga, Latvia. Dr. Skride?
We both are living and working in Riga, and so I will tell some things about our conferences. What are we organizing? So Baltic states, 3 Baltic states in the north of Europe, Latvia in the middle, Estonia in the north, and Lithuania in the south. As you can see, so in Estonia, they have 2 PH centers. One center is located in Tallinn, it's capital of Estonia, and second PH center is located in Tartu. This is large university city in Estonia. And in Estonia, there are 2 PH centers as well. One is located in capital of Lithuania, in Vilnius, and second PH center is located in this was old capital of Lithuania, Kauna, city Kauna. And in Latvia, we have only 1 PH referral center. We are referring here our patients already since 2007, when first PH specific drug was approved in Latvia, and this it was sildenafil. So I remember how I started to treat my first PH patient with sildenafil since 2007, and then after 2 years, bosentan and ambrisentan was available in Latvia, and then of course prostanoids comes in Latvia, and now on early access program, there is for 2 patients is availability to receive SOTA. SOTA is not yet reimbursed by government, but we are together with Ieva. We will fight, and hopefully after 1, 2, or latest 3 years, SOTA will be available in Latvia as well. Yes, we are part of, all 3 countries are part of Compare registry as well. And now we are registering actually not only group 1 and group 4 patients. You know that it's a lot of trials is coming for group 2 and group 3 as well. And now we are started registries for group 2 and 3 as well. If we are doing a lot of local science in Latvia, I have now two active PhD students. One my PhD student is working with echo and right cat, and one my PhD student work was connected with physical activities. But we are part of randomized trials, and I put on one slide all ongoing and all trials which we will start in near future. So number 1, I am very happy that enrollment for Gossamer trial with seralutinib enrollment is ended, and so we will the results of phase 3 will be in December. I think the drug is very promising, and hopefully it will be one more target, anti-proliferative target to treat our patients with seralutinib drug. We ran in Latvia, we randomized 15 patients for this trial, quite a large numbers, and I think that, and actually our patients is happy to be on this trial. Yes, you see that actually for group 1, it's a good news for patients. It's a good news for all PH community. For group 1, a lot of trials is coming, and 3 companies will start trials very soon in Riga Center as well. Already in September, you know, I think it's not a secret that Novartis will start a trial, and one company with monoclonal antibodies will start a trial, and 2A phase trial one company will start with a protein kinase inhibitor. And of course, group 3 is very on the top as well. Now we started mostly Bogaard in Latvia. We randomized already 2 patients, and we'll see what will happen after 16 weeks. Primary endpoint is PVR after 16 weeks. And actually, I am very impressed about group that some companies is working on group 2 as well, and we started to enroll our patients for group 2 PH tectonic trial, phase 2 with relaxin mimetic, and you know that relaxin is hormone, is potential agent with potential antifibrotic and potential some vasodilatation effects. And we randomized already 2 patients for relaxin trial, and I demonstrated this trial in our Baltic PH Conference as well. And of course, we are working a lot with group 4 patients. We started our BPA program 3 years ago. Now together with our friends and colleagues from Warsaw, Professor Marcin Kurzyna, and then we are so results is good, and I demonstrated these results in our PH in our Baltic PH conference as well. what it is Baltic PH Conference. Actually, it was our idea, our doctors, of course, with the patient organization, with Ieva together. It was our idea to together with Ieva start Baltic PH Conference every second year, and we started first conference in 2016. And at that year, still treprostinil was not available in Latvia, and actually we reached a lot. Science First Conference. Here is team members from Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia after successful first conference. I will show, just for relax, I will show one painting from each country. It's summer, and actually my great grandfather is was very famous Latvian painter, was one of the impressionists of Latvian landscape painting, and here is one of his most famous paintings. It is from my private collection. Daugava is a river. Latvia's largest river is Daugava, and Pļaviņas is city. And here this painting was painted in 1939, and river Daugava near city Pļaviņas. So next Baltic PH Conference was already in Vilnius. You can see Professor Torbitsky was there, and other prominent professors was there. So next, and here you can see a very famous Jonas Čeponis, Lithuanian painter, old gate from Vilnius, capital of Lithuania. Third Baltic PH Conference was in 2020, and here you can see very beautiful painting from Konrad Magi. Saaremaa is island, one of Estonian islands, and it's a very beautiful place to go in summer. And yes, actually Estonia has a lot of small islands, and Saaremaa Island is largest islands from Estonia islands, and there is a very beautiful nature, and the fourth one, Baltic PH Conference, you are see our audience is growing, and it's only lecturers actually, and you can see Professor Sidborn was there, and colleagues from Lithuania, Estonia, and of course Gossamer helps a lot, and other companies. Thank you. And this is one more job from my granduncle, River Ogre. And fifth Baltic PH Conference was on 9th of May this year in Kaunas, Lithuania. So Kaunas is a very beautiful city, old city with from medieval times, and what we discussed about a lot of things, and there was a state-of-art lecture from Professor Humbert. Mark Humbert was there, and spoke about future treatments, and there was some my colleagues spoke about challenging case of PH, and actually it was a great event. Great event. Yes, Mark spoke about current situation in PH therapy and future treatment, and of course about SOTA and ongoing trials. And as I already mentioned it, as group agent relaxin mimetic for group 2. I hope it will be promising, and 3 patients screened in Latvian center, 2 already randomized. We are looking for new patients, and this is, I think this will, if we will find some agent for group 2, because all trials, all randomized trials previously failed. Tadalafil trial failed, other trials failed for group 2, and this will be, we will see. Of course, there was a lot of discussions about group 3, new treatments, and how we can classify group 3, and what we should do, and what we can do for group 3. We are, as I already mentioned it, in Baltic states, we are not only the part of randomized multi-center trials. There was local abstracts and presenters from Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. We are doing every year epidemiological studies. Just we submit, a week ago, we submitted our Latvian article about Latvian incidence and prevalence for CTEPH patients in Latvia in 2024. Hopefully it will be published soon. So we started with Journal of Pulmonary Circulation. We'll see if it will be accepted. Then our incidence data about 2024 will be published very soon. And we are doing as well preclinical research here in Baltic states. One of my PhD students did a preclinical research with agent meldonium, and the aim was to show could meldonium, it's one agent, could meldonium help for a right ventricle in rat models with PH. Yes, and actually winner of abstract session was one third year student. So there is a lot of new scientists in Baltic states who are working with PH. And what so my student work was, so he prepared pulmonary arteries and wrote in protocol for pulmonary angiographies here in Latvia. And so, for example, if I need to know, of course, I know anatomy, but if I need very quickly to know for which artery we are doing BPI, this name for my student is Matis. I am always asking Matis which artery or which segment is this, and after 1 second he's already telling this is A9 or 9. And so our new scientist is doing great work. And so for this model, Matis analyzed generations of pulmonary arteries. He measured together with our professor in anatomy. They measured all diameters, all millimeters and angles, and so it was great work. It was some very practical and insight from Baltic states, from Baltic PH Conference. Thank you for listening. Thank you for inviting, and probably have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Skride, for that comprehensive presentation. And it's quite exciting to see all the different clinical trials and research projects going on. I think some of the PH patients here are especially interested to learn a bit more about your work on the topic of quality of life. Could you tell us about that in a few words?
Yes, so we developed our own questionnaire, and yes, there is some ongoing local trials. We are questioning the patients, and when patient is entering in our registry, we are giving these questionnaires to each patient. We are studying at first how till diagnosis, how doctors was visited before real diagnosis was established, how patients feels on time of diagnosis, and how patients feel on treatment. So we are using these questionnaires a lot. And yes, one of our things what we are doing, we are asking always, actually it's very interesting, we are asking always, how many echo you did before you was sent to PH center? How many doctors was visited? It's actually very interesting point, and we will publish this data as well. Yes, but we are using questionnaires a lot.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we'll look forward to that publication that I think will shine more light on the diagnostic odyssey that some people living with PH have to experience and go through. Thank you, Dr. Skride, for your excellent presentation today. And yeah, with that, I would like to invite the next speakers to the stage. So that's Louise Bouman from the Alliance for PH, and Dr. Harm-Jan Bogaard. Thank you both for joining. And of course, Dr. Bogaard is Professor of Experimental Pulmonary Medicine at the Amsterdam UMC in the Netherlands. And Louise is president of the Dutch PH Association and a board member of the Alliance for PH. And so over to you both to hear more about the PVRI Drug Discovery Symposium. Shall I share my screen and you'll just tell me next?
Yes.
Does that sound okay?
Please.
All right, great.
Very good.
Yeah, I have it
Sounds
up here.
perfect.
Okay, take it away.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to share some of our experiences and the lessons that we learned at the Drug Discovery and Development Symposium. Louise and I are doing this together. We didn't have a practice run, but I think we know each other well enough, and so that we can make this work. So I guess I'll start off. Louise, is that okay with you? And,
that's a great idea.
okay, and then you have clearly indicated where you wanted to make some comments on the topics that I will discuss first. But whenever you want to say something at other moments, just please fill in wherever you want. And I think also for the rest of the audience, for me, it's okay if questions are asked during the presentation, but after the presentation is fine too. But I have no objection in answering questions during the presentation.
I think it's more handy to do it afterwards, because it's recorded, so people want to look back, and then it's more, it's a little bit chaotic if it's done in between. So
as always, you are smarter than me in things like this.
So no, I'm not, but I just know it's recorded. So
okay. Can I get the next slide? Yeah, so I will just go through the program and discuss every topic that was during the meeting. So we started with of course a brief introduction by the current president of the PVRI. The PVRI is an institute that is out there for, I think, more than 15 years now. dedicated to promoting research and education in the field of pulmonary hypertension. Every year there's an annual symposium for all members, and every 2 years there's a so-called drug development symposium. And this year we had the opportunity to host it in Amsterdam. It was nice weather, which is not a given in early June, but I think it was appreciated very much to be able to do this meeting in Amsterdam. So of course, already discussed a little bit, the big change in the care for patients with pulmonary hypertension is sotatercept. Was approved by the FDA and the European Medicines Agency. Unfortunately, it's only available at this point in a couple of countries, but everybody is well aware that treatment algorithms will change with sotatercept being available. And also the ways future drug development will be done will change when patients already have the access to sotatercept. As I said, the drug is only available in a few countries at this point. And part of this has to do with the different processes and the different evaluations that were done by the regulatory agencies in different countries. So we were very pleased to have two regulators present during the meeting. Mitchell Psotka from the FDA in the United States, and Ileana Meurs, who works at the Medicines Evaluations Board in the Netherlands and was involved in the EMA process. And they gave us some perspectives on the regulatory process in those two instances. So the FDA made the conclusion that the label for sotatercept was very broad, not just for an improvement in exercise capacity, but also improvements in real clinical outcomes. Whereas the EMA judged it a little bit differently and only gave the label of improvement of exercise capacity. And it made this situation in many European countries a little bit difficult, because this is a restriction of the label and gives other ideas about reimbursement. For example, in the Netherlands, there's still a lot of discussion on reimbursement of sotatercept. And part of this has to do with a different evaluation of the two regulatory agencies. What was very interesting to hear them discuss and to see how they evaluated the same studies in different ways. This is, of course, always the case when you talk about science. There can be disagreements. I think that it is likely that at some point the EMA will also come to a more broader label for the use of sotatercept, but they needed the additional studies that were done in the past couple of months and were finished in the past couple of months to really be able to give such a broad label. Both agencies did a fast track procedure. So initially it went really quite fast, but whether they will be able, like EMA will be able to make an adjustment in an equally fast way, that is of course the question. So this is still work in progress, and also depends on evaluation of very new studies that were published with sotatercept. Then we had actually I think I should already go to the next slide. Can you give me the next slide, please? Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention this before. So we can already go to the I discussed this. We can go to the next slide. I think Louise has her perspective on the matter.
Yes, I do. Well, the main issue is indeed that the final approval by the EMA was narrowed to improving exercise capacity only, so removing all references to secondary endpoints, and also requiring combination use with other PAH therapies, as in research was also, of course. But what stands out from the patient's perspective is the lack of consistency in how health-related quality of life has been measured across all clinical trials. So not only this one, but in general, because many different prompts have been used, but they are not comparable. And as a result, it becomes very difficult to demonstrate statistically a significant improvement in quality of life, even when patients may actually feel better. And for patients, quality of life is not a secondary concern. It is often our main concern. We don't just want to survive, we want to live. It would therefore be very helpful if the field could agree on more suitable and pH-specific prompts to use consistently in future trials, especially when evaluating new treatments like sotatercept.
Very good point, Louisa. I echo that. Can I get the next slide? Yeah, you went to, yeah, this is the first one. So one of the very important things is, of course, we have guidelines, we have a clear treatment algorithm, but now sotatercept is being accepted, and where to place it in the treatment algorithm? Do we use it in patients only with the highest risk or also lower risks? Do we use it in patients who are just recently diagnosed, or do we wait? A lot of this depends on how the different studies were done. And the first idea of how a new treatment algorithm could look like was published last year. It was a result of the World Symposium on Pulmonary Hypertension, and pretty much based on the results of the STELLAR study. So that was the first phase 3 study on the use of sotatercept in PH patients. And in that particular study, the patients that were treated with sotatercept were prevalent cases, so patients that were already known with the diagnosis for on average, I think it was about 8 years, and patients that had been using background therapy for a very long time. So when you look at the results of the STELLAR study, the main place for a drug like sotatercept would be in patients that are not achieving a low risk status at follow-up. So the placement would be not at the beginning of treatment, but at follow-up. Patients that are not responding properly, don't achieve low risk. In these patients, sotatercept could be considered on the basis of the STELLAR study. But that is, of course, still a very limited scope. Some patients already arrive at the hospital at initial diagnosis in a very high risk. And should we also consider sotatercept in these patients? Well, now we have the results of the Zenith and Hyperion studies. So Zenith were patients in high risk, and Hyperion were patients with a relatively very recent diagnosis. And this could really change a future treatment algorithm further, and could lead to consideration of sotatercept maybe even before the use of prostacyclin, parenteral prostacyclins. But that is something that a lot of discussion still needs to be done around. The other important point that Luke Howard made was that, of course, we are talking about low risk and as something that should be acceptable, but still, patients in a low risk status do have a considerable that is not no risk. Patients still have a chance of to die within 5 years of about 3%. So that is still something that we should not be just complacent about and should just accept, but we may try to achieve even more. But how do we test this in clinical trials? That is very difficult. That means that we need different endpoints, and maybe we have to look back at hemodynamics to really determine whether sotatercept in a low-risk patient still has some benefit. And the other important thing that still needs to be worked out in the future is whether sotatercept will allow for withdrawal of certain treatments. It's already been done, but we still don't know whether this is really safe. But some patients on parenteral prostacyclins responding really well to sotatercept are taken off the parenteral drugs. but there are no really studies that really show us that this approach is safe on the long run. So that is something that really needs to be tested. So a lot of discussion on what the treatment algorithm should look like, and also the realization that actually for the current treatment algorithm, some of the scientific evidence is not even as strong as we might wish, and some of the evidence of sotatercept may even be stronger than some of the evidence that we had in older studies. So I think the next slide.
Yes, actually, I came to the same thing. First of all, it's very encouraging to see that during the World Symposium on Pulmonary Hypertension, sotatercept was discussed as a potential option already in the intermediate low category, after follow-up, of course. For patients diagnosed at high risk, the first step will still be triple therapy with prostacyclins. And during the presentation of Luke Howard, the possible option of starting with quadruple therapy was mentioned, with an extra option to stop later with the IV and replace it with selexipag if needed. As patient advocate, I truly hope that future evidence will also support the immediate use in patients diagnosed at high risk. So triple therapy, but then including sotatercept instead of prostacyclins. If sotatercept could help delay, or in some cases even avoid the need for IV or subcutaneous prostanoid therapy, that would be a meaningful development for patients. This mode of administration, while effective, places a significant burden on daily life. It impacts mobility, work, social participation, and mental well-being. Any treatment that could postpone or reduce the need for such invasive therapies would represent a real improvement in quality of life.
Yeah, that's an absolutely good point. And unfortunately, the studies that were done so far were always in patients already on background therapy. So it's still a very difficult decision to make on the basis of the evidence. But of course, the benefit of such an approach is very clear. Yeah.
And maybe it's also in discussion with the patients themselves. So you can discuss it as a doctor, you know, that the patients know the risk of doing it, because no future evidence is yet available. But well, if people really don't want to have IV therapy, then maybe it should be an option.
Yeah, and I think the discussion will come back later, maybe when we talk about registries. If such this approach that you are advocating is probably going to be used, evidence or no evidence, and studies or no studies, but it would be good to have good registries like the Go Deep registry that can follow up on those patients and really look at long-term results of such an approach. Yeah. Can I have the next slide? So then Marion Decroix from Leuven discussed drug development with this new situation of sotatercept being in background therapy. So this makes the whole playing field for drug trials really difficult. Many new questions arise because sotatercept has a big effect. So how do you prove that that a new drug, even added on to sotatercept, is still going to be effective? Probably something like a 6-minute walk distance is very difficult to use. So different endpoints are required. Quality of life, as Louise says, is of course very important. But maybe we also need to reconsider the use of invasive hemodynamics, because in the end, this is what happens in the disease. The pulmonary vascular resistance goes up, and if we can normalize this, maybe that's something that we should really try to achieve. What is also complicated is whether in a trial that when you design a trial, whether it should be mandatory to have sotatercept in the control arm, because this is more or less becoming a standard of care, and it could be unethical to deny a patient access to sotatercept before you start doing testing, before you start testing a new drug. But when sotatercept is only available in a couple of countries, this becomes, of course, impossible to execute a trial, and it also becomes irrelevant when a lot of patients do not have access to sotatercept. So that's a difficult discussion. So Marion went on to talk about enrichment strategies that may identify patients that so that we can do trials in a smarter way and maybe with smaller sizes of the population. But a lot of work needs to go into that, and I think for this new work, it's very important to have the voice of patients in designing trials, and it's also very important to have a network of centers that do trials, so that we don't do useless trials. So that we really focus all our resources and all our patients to the right trials and be effective in such a way. I think we lost our presentation.
I think so too.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Can you show the next slide?
Yeah, because I noticed something else during the discussions. Marion Delcroix was asked about the use of quality of life as a potential outcome measure in clinical trials. And she noted that only about 20% of her patients complete the questionnaires that they send before follow-up visits. And she suggested this might mean patients are not interested in them. Well, I don't agree, actually. I think it's quite the opposite. When patients take the time to complete these questionnaires, but their answers are not acknowledged or discussed during consultations, they begin to feel that their input isn't valued. And this can lead to frustration and lower response rates over time. So, if used properly, these tools can be incredibly valuable. When healthcare professionals actively engage with patients about their responses, it shows that their quality of life matters, and that can motivate patients to stay involved, and then can be a highly relevant and powerful tool for use in clinical trials. They can provide insight into how patients are truly doing beyond clinical parameters and help evaluate whether a treatment is making a real difference in daily life.
That's an excellent point, Louise. I really think that's extremely important. But it can be quite cumbersome to fill in all these lists, and if nobody looks at these data, then subsequently, of course, you stop filling them out. So it's an extremely important point. Next slide, please. Oh, yes, this one. Yeah, this is a discussion that is ongoing in the research field, and that's the discussion on disease modification. Disease modification is a term that was used in rheumatology first, and now this term is also making its way into trials for pulmonary hypertension, and there can be some discussion on the use of it. Can I have the next slide? So Mark Toshner from Cambridge tried to explain this concept. So in rheumatology, it was quite clear. In the early days, there were only painkillers basically for patients. So as long as patients used their painkiller, they didn't have symptoms. But the destruction of the joints would just continue. The inflammation of the joints would not really be countered, and therefore the disease would just take its normal course. Well, this concept is a little bit different in when you talk about disease such as pulmonary hypertension. Of course, we have a disease process that works on two fronts. Basically, we have the changes in the pulmonary vasculature, and we have the development of right heart failure. So you could modify the disease in both areas, but it's also quite difficult to really prove that you do disease modification, because we lack the proper tools to really assess the primary pathobiological changes in the disease. We have no real imaging tools that can really tell you what's going on in the pulmonary vessels. When we do an NT-proBNP or an exercise test or or imaging of the right heart, we get indirect information and not real direct information on the disease process. So it's difficult to define disease status in an individual patient. So there are some ideas about trial design. How can you show that the drug really does disease modification, and that's shown in the little diagram on the bottom of this figure. So the dotted line more or less presents the disease when there's no treatment, when there's just a natural course of the disease, and the upper line reflects the course when a treatment is given. And one of the ways to show a potential disease modification was to the purple rectangle. If you stop the disease, if you stop the treatment, and you end up at a functional level that is just the same as somebody who would never have had who never received the treatment, there was no disease modification. But if the disease continues to go on at a slower pace, even when the drug is being stopped, this could signify disease modification. Well, the concept is nice, but the withdrawing treatments is of course not so nice for a lot of patients. When the first treatments for pulmonary hypertension became available, some of these withdrawal trials were actually done with very poor results. Actually, it was deemed to be unsafe. The situation now is a little bit different because patients have a lot of background therapy, so maybe it's safer to do a withdrawal trial. But still, it's difficult, particularly because we lack the real good tools to assess the disease status at the level of the pulmonary circulation. Louise, I think I can get your opinion. The next slide.
Well, the patient's perspective, but that's not really about modification, but about being in remission, because that was also discussed, I think, in this presentation by Mark Toshner. And from a patient's point of view, remission is not just a medical term. It represents the possibility of reclaiming a sense of normal life. It means stability, fewer symptoms, and most importantly, way more freedom. And patients often describe remission as the ability to plan ahead again, to participate in daily life without constant limitations, and to reduce the emotional and physical burden of living with pulmonary hypertension. While survival is of course important, patients want to do more than just survive. They want to live just like anybody else. And therefore, achieving remission should not only be defined by improved test results, but also by improvements in energy, mobility, mental well-being, and social participation. These are outcomes that truly matter in daily life. So that's not really about modification, but in the end, well, there should be a sort of state of remission. So.
Yeah, and I think that this is you could also if you could approach it in the same way, use a quality of life parameter as a study endpoint, and then with a withdrawal study show whether or not this treatment has a persistent and enduring effect on quality of life even after you stop the drug. But still, the same reluctance to withdrawing a drug would remain. Yeah, but it's a difficult concept, disease modification, and I'm at this point I'm not so sure whether it's going to be extremely helpful in drug development. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just to show that a lot of there was a nice presentation by Sudhar Rajagopal from the United States, showing that there is a lot of work ongoing on determining really the primary disease process in the lungs with techniques such as PET scanning, or in this particular example on the right, it's hyperpolarized xenon, a gas that you can inhale that is being taken up by the lungs and gives you an idea about the airways, the alveoli, but also the blood vessels. So that could lead in the future to a better assessment of the effect of drugs on really the primary disease process, on the remodeling of the pulmonary vessels. And other techniques are focused on the heart. On the left lower panel, you can see an image of 4D flow MRI, a novel MRI technique that gives much more information about the function of the heart and could maybe ultimately replace a right heart cath. So work is ongoing on having good measures of the disease process. But there's still no formal validation with the really important things, as the FDA always states, an endpoint that reflects how a patient functions, feels, or survives. Those new imaging techniques are not there yet. But it's appealing and promising, and I think we will hear a lot about this in the future. Louise.
Yeah, I think this is all very great, because what if it means that repeated right heart catheterization is no longer necessary? That's so nice. So go on with these techniques and use AI and everything that's possible, and I hope validation will be done in the future, because this is very hopeful for us.
Great. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. So then we had a topic that almost prevented all the American participants from coming to Amsterdam, because these terms are controversial now in the United States, diversity and inclusion. But we thought it was very important to discuss. But simply having this in an email, these words in an email, is for some American investigators now a liability, unfortunately. This topic can be addressed from many different ways, and there are many different aspects to it. But we decided to address sex differences and representation of patients into clinical trials. Can I have the next slide? The next slide, please. Yeah. So Deimante Hoppenot from Lithuania was also one of the organizers of the symposium, took on the task of discussing sex differences. For a long time, it has been known that women, of course, are more likely to develop pulmonary hypertension, particularly pulmonary arterial hypertension, but men are much more likely to die from the disease after the diagnosis. They seem to survive poorly in comparison to females. But there's no clear explanation for either of these two statistical facts. Of course, sex hormones are likely to be implicated, but drug trials that were done that really addressed sex hormones in pulmonary hypertension were not very positive. So sex hormones don't seem to be suitable treatment targets. The other aspect is, of course, the fact that different genders seem to respond different to therapeutic drugs. There are some sub-analyses of large clinical trials that have looked at this and have suggested some differences in responses to, for example, PDE5 inhibitors. But this area is still very much underexplored, and there's probably still a lot of data out there that was never analyzed or was never made public. So a lot of this still needs to be done. And it has led to the fact that gender differences are currently not accounted for in therapeutic guidelines. So a lot of improvement can be made in this field. Louise?
Yeah, that's why I added next steps, because well, discover treatments designed for each sex would be nice, just to find out the difference in how PAH develops and responds to drug in men versus women, and also include sex as a key factor in all clinical trials and treatment guidelines, ensuring that doctors choose the best therapy based on whether you're male or female. More personalized care, actually, and hopefully fewer unwanted side effects.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a matter of thinking about this in future clinical trials. But I also, as I said, I also think there's already a lot of data out there that was never properly analyzed, and then a lot could be gained there too. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then Katie Brown Johnson from Stanford University gave us her perspective on promoting inclusion of underrepresented patients into clinical trials. So she doesn't work in the field of pulmonary hypertension, but mainly in less rare cardiovascular conditions. But she's doing very interesting work that is aimed to include more patients into trials, and particularly in the United States, it's a very clear point that, for example, African Americans or Native Americans are recruited into trials in about 60% less than other ethnic groups. And of course, this could lead to conclusions on the benefit of drugs that are not applicable to all patients. So she talked about the possible explanations for this underrepresentation. In part, it's systemic racism, and in part, it's also mistrust from minority groups towards the healthcare system. But there are also ways to improve representation. And the approaches that she has been studying was to do community engagement. That may not be the most effective way in a rare disease. It's probably much more effective in a condition such as systemic hypertension or diabetes. In a rare disease, it's more difficult. But other ways are also available, such as making better use of registries and social media. And these approaches may take away some barriers during recruitment. One of the difficulties is related to the point that I discussed previously. For example, sotatercept is a drug that is on the market in the United States, but still very expensive, and I think not available to many patients because of co-payments and caps to their reimbursement over a year. So if you now in the future are going to require being on sotatercept as a background therapy for enrollment into a clinical trial, you would automatically raise or augment the degree of underrepresentation of minorities into clinical trials. So we have to really think smartly about this and make sure that this problem is not just only becoming bigger. Next slide, please.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say is to better include underrepresented patients in cardiovascular clinical trials, we should look at a unique role patient associations can play. But I think we are way out of time, so I won't say a thing. I don't know. Yeah, I think we should stop it now, actually. So is that correct, Robert?
Okay.
No, please finish up. We have at least 5 or 10 more minutes.
Oh, okay, super. Well, I noted some dots, but I think it's something to consider within in rare diseases. Yeah, in this case, I think we can help. We can really help as patient associations.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because like a lot of her work was focusing also on community-based, having a community ambassador living in the community who could help reaching candidates. That is something in a rare disease which is extremely difficult, because how could you have an ambassador in every community for a rare disease where in many communities there will be no patients. But this particular role is really tailored for patient associations. So that's a point that she didn't discuss, but I'm very glad that you raise now. Yeah. Okay, next slide. I think we will stop after this probably. Yeah, after this discussing this, I think that's we've had already a lot of good points. So I think it's also becoming too much otherwise. So The session 4 was on global aspects of drug development and availability. And the first talk was on the Go Deep registry. Can I have the next slide? So the Go Deep registry is a registry that was really set up by the PVRI. And its aims are to prioritize and facilitate global drug trials, amongst others. It's now a meta registry, as it's called. So it's a combination of different registries, with now including 32 pulmonary hypertension centers across the globe. And many centers are still looking into participation. In the trial are now almost 40,000 patients, so that's an enormous amount. There's a lot of discussion on the quality of the data when there's a lot of missingness, so to say. So some variables are not available, and all these registries are, of course, set up in a different way. It's not always clear whether patients were, for example, receiving a right heart catheterization before they were entered into the registry. So there's some discussion on whether the data are really representative, but at the same time, because now we arrive at such high numbers of patients, you can do a very good subgroup analysis, and you can account for the missingness of data, and therefore get very meaningful insights from such a meta registry. And it could inform on improving recruitment strategies into clinical trials. It could also enable the performance of registry-based clinical trials. So that's not a formal randomized clinical trial, which is, of course, extremely expensive. But you could also do a registry-based clinical trial. For example, for one of those questions that Louise raised initially, is it possible to use sotatercept in a treatment-naive patient in high risk? This is a rare situation, but we will see in the future that patients will be treated with sotatercept, and a registry like the Go Deep registry could then be used to mimic a formal clinical trial, just on the basis of the data. The Go Deep registry is also collecting other novel biomarkers, blood biomarkers, imaging biomarkers, and analyses of the data could be used to improve enrichment of trials, make sure that you do the trial in the right patients, and also make sure that efficacy is assessed in a proper way. And something that could be useful for pharmaceutical companies. It could also aid in calculation the costs of a particular trial. Louise, next slide, please.
Well, yes, I already see it. This registry can really help improve how clinical trials are designed. For example, it could help researchers decide who should or should not take part in a trial based on real-world data, and make sure trials include enough people to show whether a treatment works, and test if new digital tools like wearables or apps can track disease activity. Because the data follows patients over time, it may also help predict how the disease will progress and which treatments give the best results for both health and costs. So that's a nice combination, I would say.
Great. Next, and then we had a pro-con debate on whether big pharma should focus on making the current drugs available for all patients, or should focus on drug discovery. Well, actually, it didn't become a very heated debate. I think we all more or less agreed that drug availability is a big problem, but it's not just a problem of the pharmaceutical industry. It's a problem of all of us, basically. On the left shown the size of the different populations in the world, and then the big balloons of China and India, where a lot of the drugs that we've been discussing over the past 30 minutes are not available to many patients. So there are a lot of things that are necessary to reduce barriers for drug availability. But at the same time, the primary responsibility of big pharma is to really develop new drugs. They're not philanthropic institutes. Of course, it's the way that the system has been set up. Our governments have decided that drug development is very expensive, so it's better to outsource that to commercial parties. And as such, we cannot expect that they will truly focus on drug availability only. But at the same time, we can of course urge them to be at least reasonable in how they set their prices, and also how they can think about not doing really harmful things like just evergreening patents to make a drug seem new, but in fact the drug is still the same as the old drug. These kinds of approaches are really not very helpful. Can I have the next slide?
Yes, but actually, I agree with what's said. The discussion was actually the conclusion from both medical experts was clear. Innovation and access are not opposing goals, but they are twins. And actually, as a patient representative, I couldn't agree more. So that's actually what's said underneath.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. I think it's this is
because
yeah,
we are
this was
already running out of time. But maybe we can do for the recording later on and make it a total webinar. So maybe we can add some time with you, Robert,
Sounds
to
good.
just
Yeah,
record it. Yeah,
definitely.
because it's a waste if nobody gets the information we still have in the
Yeah, we can
presentation.
tack on the last part. Thank you both very much. This was a fascinating presentation, and I like the joint presentation and having the patient perspective just after. I think that works very well, and then, you know, having kind of a scientific back and forth. Would you mind if we did just a few questions? You got a lot of questions, and some we might need to follow up with after, but if we could. But yeah, let's maybe just tackle one or two here. Question about the dose of sotatercept. Are there thoughts, clinical studies, ideas about a lower maintenance after the initial time? How many years, months of the 0.7 milligram per kilogram dose?
yeah,
That's from
it's a great question.
Daniela.
It's a great question. I'm not aware of actual trials where they look at the different doses. Of course, the initial trial was with 2 doses. One of the interesting things that was discussed is to really titrate this on an individual patient level, and patients getting side effects, and maybe doing like a pause in drug administration, just skip a month or go to a lower dose. Like all these things are of course very attractive, and maybe we should even think about wearables or even implantable monitors, such as a CardioMEMS, where you can have continuous blood pressure measurements in your pulmonary artery, to really titrate the dose in an individual patient. I think these concepts were, like, some time ago people thought it was crazy to do this, but now there's a lot of data on the safety of such approaches, and the usefulness of such an approach in left heart disease. So I think we will, as a community, we will need to consider this, and have a monitoring device, or maybe an app with a PROM, I don't know, and then use this to down titrate drugs to the lowest effective concentration. It could be the same could be true for the other drugs that we can do with lower doses.
Thank you. Was the issue of pain due to PAH therapy and how to relieve it discussed at the meeting at all? Because it's a key issue for quality of life.
No, this was not mentioned actually, and I think Pisana refers to subcutaneous therapy, but no, this wasn't mentioned at all actually. So it was not part of the discussion.
Yeah, it
Not
was
really.
more or less implicit interested in the discussion on withdrawal of parenteral prostacyclins, and it was just mentioned as a general point of side effects of parenterals and how you could maybe withdraw them when you are on sotatercept. So I think it was in people's minds, but it was not specifically discussed. No.
Great, thank you. And last question, the ideal for patients would be to not ever have to go on pump therapy, whether subcutaneous or IV. So sotatercept represents a big hope to improve quality of life. Is this likely to happen in the future? What is needed for this to happen?
Yeah, so I think we discussed these two things. So we would ideally have a trial or real world data on showing the efficacy of initial treatment with sotatercept in patients in high risk. So a new patient coming in high risk and start with sotatercept. That's the kind of data that we need. And the second kind of data, and that is a trial that's actually currently being designed. And that is a trial of parenteral prostacyclin withdrawal on patients on sotatercept. So that trial will definitely be done. Whether this is safe and how to approach this. Yeah, but those are there's also the initiative in the Go Deep registry also to register this in the proper way and to analyze this. Yeah. But those are very important questions, of course. Yeah.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Dr. Bogaard. We'll be in contact about recording that last piece to then make it a complete presentation. And yeah, you both did excellent. And I think all the attendees really enjoyed and felt like they attended the symposium through your very concise summary. So thank you for that.
Thank you all.
Very welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so Pisana Ferrari will present next. Pisana is president of the Italian PH Association, as well as Secretary General of the Alliance for PH. And Pisana, I think you'll be sharing your screen yourself, right?
Yes, I will be. Thank you, Robert. Let me get my slides. I hope everybody can see them.
Yep.
Hi.
Go ahead. Thanks, Pisana.
So I'm just back from Vienna, where I attended the Vienna Lung Failure and Transplantation Symposium. And my topic, which was I was asked to speak about, is fostering European collaboration in pulmonary hypertension. So just a few words to introduce myself. For those who don't know me, I'm a former pulmonary arterial hypertension patient, diagnosed in 1988 when there were no treatments, no expert centers, no clinical guidelines, not even internet, so very little information. The disease progressed in my case, and apart from a year and a half with Flolan to bridge, I had to have a double lung transplant 23 years ago, and in fact it was precisely in Vienna at the General Hospital with Professor Klepetko and his team. I've been a patient advocate since 2001 with different organizations. I'm the co-founder and president of IP, Italian Pulmonary Hypertension, and as you kindly said, also Secretary General of the Alliance. My professional activity is in communication and event management. I've been doing this for about 30 years. So today I'm going to talk to you, I'll give a brief overview of the symposium, so the scientific part, even if my particular talk was more about collaboration. So referring to that, I will talk about the PH community and the key features that make it quite unique in the rare disease world. I will give examples of collaborative activities in PH care and collaborative activities in lung transplant, and then I have some concluding remarks. So this is a brief overview of the scientific topics that were covered at the symposium, which are very important, of course, because lung transplant is extremely relevant to our patients because it is the treatment of option when the other treatments have failed, and in particular, the most powerful type of treatment. So currently, the new standard of care is double lung transplant. The less common are single lung transplant and living lobe donor, although there are cases. Now, the donor pool is a big problem. As you all know, there's a huge demand for organs and there's a big gap in this demand. So a number of actions to increase the number of organs were discussed during the sessions. And one of these in particular, which is ex vivo lung perfusion, which allows us to regenerate organs that perhaps would not have been accepted previously, but which can really be transformed and become excellent donor organs. The case was made also for earlier referral to lung transplant based on data with clinical outcomes. So the case was made for changes to be made in the next treatment algorithm to move it up in the algorithm. Another very important point was that the number of procedures of a center correlates very directly with clinical outcomes. So the experience is vital to ensure that patients do well afterwards. What I found from a patient point of view very important was that there was a lot of attention paid to quality of life issues and well-being of patients. For example, pain management. There are some new techniques which were shown that can relieve pain post-transplant, in particular between the ribs, based on cryotherapy. Cryotherapy means extreme cold. And this could help avoid using opioids, which sometimes in post-transplant lead to addiction. Another point that relates to well-being of patients is ventilation. There were discussions on how to modulate mechanical ventilation better to avoid harm and discomfort. ECMO, for those of you who don't know the acronym, is extracorporeal, I forget the word. Anyway, it's about having oxygenation process go through a machine and not through your own lungs. And this is increasingly used also in replacement of mechanical ventilation with excellent results, both for bridging to a transplant and post-transplant. And today, once the machines were huge, now there's improved patient mobility. And there were a lot of very interesting sessions also about the future of lung transplant, which are very promising, including gene therapy, personalized care, so adaptive immunosuppressants based on the patient's specific conditions, genetic editing in donor organs, and xenotransplantation, which is harvesting organs from animals. And in particular, this is quite advanced with kidneys and heart coming from genetically modified pigs. This is a slide where Professor Klepetko, who presented the lung transplant program, shows which are the different activities that are needed to increase the donor pool. So legislation, extension of the criteria, active donor management, size reduced transplant, living donation, non-heart beating donation, and ex vivo reconditioning. In the meantime, I'll try to see if I can find what the acronym ECMO means. So I now come to the features of the PH community, which makes it quite unique in the rare disease landscape. First of all, it's had a very rapid evolution. There's been huge advances in a relatively short time, 25 to 30 years, in terms of creation of expert centers, research, treatments, treatment management, surgery, and patient association representation. I was diagnosed 36 years ago, so I've seen actually all of this happen in my own patient journey, and it's been very exciting to see how this progress has benefited patients in so many ways. It's a very focused community because it's focused on the rare forms of PH, PAH, pulmonary arterial hypertension, as the first drugs approved were for this rare form, and CTEPH, where surgical solutions are available and are very successful. It's a multidisciplinary community because it includes different specialties which are needed to address the different forms of PAH care. So congenital heart disease, HIV, scleroderma, substance abuse, and in surgery, because we have lung transplant, but we also have balloon pulmonary angioplasty and pulmonary endarterectomy for CTEPH. It's a close and relatively small community where everybody knows everybody, healthcare professionals, patients, patient representatives in industry, and it's well connected because there is regular convening through the scientific society congresses, European Society of Cardiology, European Respiratory Society, European Society for Organ Transplant, the World Symposium on PH, and so on. And also through industry and other events. Now, all of this, the fact that it's close, well connected, and very focused, has meant that there's been very rapid dissemination of new research, treatments, and best practices globally. So how does European collaboration in PH actually play out? So there are collaborations between different patient associations that conduct joint awareness campaigns, who prepare policy papers. The PH Patient Charter is another example. Between healthcare professionals, we've heard lots of examples today in research, scientific papers, conferences, educational training programs, EU-supported networks like ERN Lung, informal knowledge sharing exchanges across borders. We heard today also about the international registry from Dr. Bogaard. There are also interesting collaborations between patient associations and healthcare professionals through the scientific societies, foundations, and research institutes. And of course, we all have collaborations with industry. For patients, it's through patient advisory boards or steering committees and expert panels. For the industry, it's clinical trial collaborations, research grants, and advisory boards. And Symposium and the international congresses bring together the entire community, so all the stakeholders. I'm now going to give just a couple of examples of successful collaborations. First of all, in PH care, and then in lung transplant. So World Pulmonary Hypertension Day, we've already heard about it from Ieva, which was founded in 2012 and has become a global event, bringing together 80 associations on average each year. It's coordinated by PHA Europe. It has a unified look with a common theme and branding. And it has the involvement of patients, healthcare professionals, health authorities, and industry. Other occasions on which the patient community comes together are Rare Disease Day, which is on the last day of February every year, European Organ Donation Day, which is in October, and CTEPH Awareness Month in November. Collaborations between healthcare professionals and patients started in 2018 in the European Society of Cardiology with the creation of the ESC Patient Forum. Now, this has provided the opportunity for members of the Patient Forum, and in particular myself and Gergely Messaros, to participate in the development of the last ESC-ERS clinical guidelines. The work on these went on from 2020 to 2022. It was the first time ever that patient advocates were co-authors of the clinical guidelines. It was myself and Gergely, as you can see from, this is the article. I'm not sure that my mouse works as a pointer, but you can see our names with the other 37 top experts from the entire world. Now, being a member of the Patient Forum also gives you the opportunity to speak at ESC congresses. This is an example from the London Congress last year, where I was asked to speak on the inclusion of the patient perspective in new clinical trials in PH, and also co-authorship of articles, ESC PH quality indicators being an example, and participation in different committees. So you can see a very strong collaboration with doctors through the European Society of Cardiology. More or less the same thing is happening with the European Respiratory Society. The collaboration here started in 2023 when the ELF Patient Advisory Group was formed. The PH Patient Advisory Group was created. The ERS provides support for the organization of our initiatives, including the PH Question Time webinar, which was held in 2023. And it gives the opportunity to speak at ERS congresses. Again, there was a session last year at the ERS Congress in Vienna, where I was able to speak about the World Symposium on Pulmonary Hypertension and my role in it. And it also allows you to take part in ERS task forces. There's one currently working on PH at altitude, just started. And here you can see the members from all of Europe, and there's also a member from the United States. This is my last example of collaboration with the scientific societies. The World Symposium, a very important event. It's the key scientific event in the world on pulmonary hypertension, and it's been held every 5 years since 1988. In 2018, for the very first time, a task force on patient perspectives was created to allow for the involvement and collaboration with patients. The task force in 2024, so the very last one, was composed of 4 patients. You can see them in the picture here, and 4 healthcare professionals. This collaboration led to the development of a paper, this one here, which was presented at the plenary session. And in fact, we were asked to make the opening speech, whereas in 2019, we were the last to speak. So big improvement there as well. And this paper is part of the published proceedings of the work of the 50 task forces that make up the World Symposium. Very important collaboration. Now, the example of collaboration on lung transplant comes from the data that were presented in Vienna in the last few days and relate to the Vienna Lung Transplant Center. This program started in 1986. There were 3 years of preparation, and the very first lung transplant took place in 1989. This is Professor Klepetko speaking, who was the surgeon who operated me. So this meeting actually was very special for me for many different reasons. Today, the Vienna Lung Transplant Center is among the most advanced in the world. It has held educational programs that have helped train hundreds of healthcare professionals worldwide. And very importantly, it has acted as a hub to expand lung transplant programs in Eastern Europe, where there was a vast unmet need. Today, lung transplant survival at the Vienna Center at 10 years is 78%. So there's also been huge improvements in survival statistics. A few words about the Vienna training and education programs. It has a leading role today as a leading teaching center. It has created a transplant academy, which lasts 1 week, and there are 2 courses yearly. But aside from this, there are fellows that come and are trained not only during the patient academy. And between 1995 and 2024, there are over 200 healthcare professionals that have been trained. They are trained in surgical training in an operating theater, and they have hands-on experience in lung transplant procedures. And there are capacity building possibilities for people who want to set up a lung transplant program in their own country. Very new, just started, a collaboration between the Vienna Transplant Center and Toronto, which also has a very, very important lung transplant program. I think this is my last slide. Yes. So this is another very, very important activity that the Vienna Transplant Center has done, which has saved thousands of lives. It has helped develop lung transplant programs in Eastern Europe, which was largely without transplant capabilities. So these are the dates: Czech Republic, 1997, Estonia 2014, Hungary 2015, Slovenia 2018, Greece 2019, Croatia 2021, and Ukraine 2023. So a hugely successful program. Whoops, I skipped my conclusions. Here they are. So to conclude, the PH community has achieved remarkable growth in just 25 to 30 years, especially for a rare niche disease. It is highly specialized, focused, close-knit, and well-connected. Multi-stakeholder collaboration between patients, clinicians, surgeons, researchers, and industry has become the norm. This collaboration has accelerated knowledge and innovation with significant progress. We've gone from 1 treatment in 2000, and I know very well because it was nothing when I was diagnosed, to 12 treatments today, and lots more in the pipeline, plus breakthrough surgical techniques. So collaboration drives progress. I think this is my key take-home message. And all of this translates into tangible benefits for patients and families, improved survival, better quality of life, and a supportive global community. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Pisana, for that excellent presentation. And Louise has a question: if Vienna is still accepting patients from countries that don't have a transplant program themselves?
Very good question. Unfortunately, they only do it now on a case-to-case basis, mostly for children, because there's a new policy in Austria called Austria First, ring a bell, so that in general, at the hospital, it will only take patients from Vienna, not even from the other regions in Austria. So this is something new and unfortunately very, very sad for us as patients, because many of us here, many of us in the community have benefited from the exchange programs, including myself. I was on a waiting list in Italy for almost 2 years, and I was able to switch to Vienna, where I only waited 1 month. And actually, that's what saved my life.
Wow. Well, I hope as quickly as that policy came in to not have people from other countries be part of the transplant program, it can quickly go away with other people in charge. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but I hope it can swing back in the right direction.
Well, I think with the training programs that are extremely successful and very wide-ranging, it will be possible for countries to set up their own lung transplant programs. And actually, it's preferable for many reasons. For
Yeah.
distance to the centers, waiting time, not having to move to another country, and so on. So they are continuing with their education program, and they're not the only one, obviously, in the world. I think with further education and training, it will be possible for patients to actually have a transplant in their own country.
I liked your point.
It's going to
Yeah,
take.
it's going to take time. I liked your point about multi-stakeholder collaborations being the norm. And Louise said collaboration is fortunately becoming more normal, and she really believes in these partnerships. And yeah, that's in one sense, in a way, where the PH community is quite advanced compared to some other disease areas, where even when you suggest multi-stakeholder partnerships, industry especially, I think can not be so interested in taking part there and be more hesitant. So that's good to see that it's the norm, and hopefully will continue to be. And what are some of like the success factors in those collaborative projects? I mean, is it something as simple as making sure there's real, authentic patient involvement in all the decision making and on the board? Or is it, just meeting face to face regularly? But you gave quite a few examples, and what makes the good ones good?
The good collaborations, I think what makes them good is that patients are now more empowered. So there's been a gradual trend towards better patient empowerment, also thanks to the rise of internet, because that has allowed patients to connect, to have information on a scale that was previously impossible, and also it could use the learnings from all the civil rights and breast cancer and HIV movements, the grassroots movements of the 80s and 90s. So all of this has contributed to creating an environment that is conducive to patient empowerment. And I think doctors have had to realize that patients are now arriving at their consultations. They have some knowledge. It might not be correct, but you can't just tell them what to do anymore. And I hope I'm not offending anyone, but that was a little bit the paternalistic view of medicine that has been like that for decades, if not centuries. So I think this patient empowerment, patient associations getting stronger, having a collective voice, federations being created, where more associations are together and they can do more. I'm thinking of PHA Europe or the Alliance or the Latin Society in South America. So I hope that partly. I have another example to give. For example, I've been working as a volunteer for the European Society for Organ Transplant. Until 2019, we were not even allowed to enter, to walk into the building and to attend the conference. And last year, a patient, it was myself, but that's incidental, was nominated honorary co-chair. I was asked to do the opening speech, and I was involved for 2 years in setting the program for the ESOT Congress. So you see how in a very short time, patients have been able to make a huge step forward in terms of involvement, participation. And I'm not saying that the task is complete. It's not.
Right.
I mean, there's still a long way to go. And there are things, especially in policy and legislation, that take a very long time. Advocacy takes a very long time. Awareness is easier.
Definitely. Thanks, Pisana. And thank you to all of our speakers today. So this was the second of 4 webinars that we're going to have this year. The next one in Q3 will be on the 30th of September. And it will provide updates on treatment strategies, surgical advances, ongoing and future clinical trials, just as today, as well as new patient association-led initiatives in the field of education and training. So thanks to everyone for attending. Don't forget you can watch these clips from the last one or from this one on the knowledge sharing platform under the Our Webinar section, and also on the Alliance's YouTube channel. So check in there and you'll be able to see those. So thanks for speaking. Thanks for joining. And it was a real pleasure being here with all of you today.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care. Thank you all.